the parents and the students have the opportunity for more control. If they know down the road what's coming up, they can plan their weeks accordingly. They can plan their learning accordingly. They can make sure they have the resources. So choice is really important at this point. If we don't feel like that's important, this young man said it very, very clearly. You know, he says, the thing that I would say makes learning better is when everyone has more freedom in what they choose. Maybe it's the topic for their research. Maybe it's able to choose to write, draw, or build something. I just think that at times when it's difficult for a student to express himself and it frustrates them to have to bow down to strict guidelines, then I'm not saying let students do whatever they want, but perhaps freedom in choosing will pipe more curiosity, interest, and inner sparkling talent. And this was very articulately said by an 8th grade student, as mentioned in the article from Just Ask Kids, Kids Speak Out About Student Engagement by Heather Wilpert Gowan. I thought he was great. You know, he says it very succinctly. So what choices do you want to give your kids? You can give them the opportunity to decide what partner they want to work with, or maybe they don't want to work with a partner. That's a choice. They decide what kind of due dates they want. You know, if they want to do a big project and they want to turn it all in at once, or if they would rather break it into small steps and do small broken segments that eventually lead to the full project, they give them you can give them the opportunity to be more self-directed in their learning and their choice of assessment. How will they demonstrate their learning to you in the end? So it's a nice way to move that vocabulary from the teacher will in learning goals to the student will. And that's, again, is a very empowering thing to do for students. When we transition from the traditional instruction to an empowered classroom, it's really important to think about how much control are you willing to give up? You know, a lot of us are pretty set in our curriculum and what we've done and how we're presenting it. And so we have to really evaluate ourselves. Where do we want this to go? How much are we willing to let the kids control? How much can we give up? You know, we all have district curriculum that we're following. We have standards that we have to meet. So can we give up control in any of the content, how we group students, in the management of that learning, and in the goal setting? And then you have to determine what are your non-negotiables. You've got specific learning goals that have to be met. You have content that has to be covered. You have topics that have to be covered, but do they have to be covered in a specific order? Can the students kind of enhance that, go into subtopics if that's what they're interested in? You allow them that choice. And then you have to determine how are they going to be held accountable, because you've got some students that are going to take this and run with it. But you also have that kid that is just like, I don't want to choose, just tell me what I need to do. Just tell, you know, I don't care, I'll do whatever, just tell me what I need to do. And should that student, should their assessment be less valued because they haven't had the motivation or the drive to go out there and do more independently? That's something you kind of have to consider with your, how you're going to align your classroom. How can you plan to help students be successful? This is definitely a learning transition. So you can't just say, oh, by the way, we're going to do whatever kind of project, just choose a topic and run with it. There has to be a framework that you work with and you demonstrate to the students how to work within that framework to be successful. So how can you best help them? This really is a, we're all in this together. I'm here to guide you to whatever you need, but I also need to make sure that you understand that if you're not doing anything, if you're not moving forward, then I may have to pull you out of that group, or I may have to pull you back into a more traditional setting. And that has to be really upfront so that the kids don't resent or feel like you're taking away a freedom that you previously have given them. You know, they have to understand that it's all about student success, and you're in their corner, but being in their corner also means pulling them back when they need to be. And then what kind of assessment are you going to be looking for? So when you're guiding student success, it's important to build in options for how the class can participate and do their work. Are you going to give them the opportunity to just take a quiz to demonstrate that they've learned something? Are they going to do a project? Are they going to maybe do a video? How do they want to present their knowledge to you? Sometimes teachers have set up goal contracts with students where the students maybe set up 2 goals for their learning. And when doing that, that's an important empowering step, but it's also a way to support them, is to say, okay, well, what potentially could be a problem here? Maybe mom and dad can't get you to the library where you're going to get the resources you need. Maybe you don't have access to some of the materials that you need, and you don't have the money to go buy them right now. You know, what's the potential challenge? And then have the kids identify a strategy so that they don't just sit there and get stuck when they encounter an obstacle. You've been given a problem-solving opportunity. Think prior to even starting, what can you do to get through that challenge? How are you going to solve this problem? And again, students need to know that if they're not willing to keep moving forward, that you will intervene. And if you feel like they need to be pulled back, that you'll do that. A structured work plan. This is another important step. Again, it sounds great to say I've gotten choice and my teacher's going to let me do whatever I want, but it is not a free-for-all. It is important for them to, again, have that framework. The Big Six model is really great. I use this all the time with middle school students. It's a very defined framework, and if they follow those 6 steps, it's very easy to get to the end successfully. So it's important that you list when, where, and how the students are going to complete the goals, you might give them options that include a learning log, a concept map, you know, table, bulleted list, video, any number of options, but they have to choose one and they have to follow through with it. It's really important. You need to have specific dates and times that things are going to get accomplished. Those little checkpoints along the way are great opportunities to intervene and let somebody know hey, you know, a positive reinforcement is a great motivator. So if they're doing everything right, they've got it, they're able to demonstrate learning, they're soaring, let them soar. But if they are not meeting those, then another intervention is needed. And that's important to do that before the end of the project is due. So again, if you're not familiar with the Big Six, which I would be really surprised at this point, there's a little fact sheet that I found that's really succinct and describes the steps. Assessment can get hairy, especially when you've got a room full of kids and they're all doing different things. You could be ready to pull your hair out lots of times. So thinking about assessment, that good curriculum course design where before you even set them free, you have to know what's the end result. What are you looking for? So doing mini assessments are a quick way to determine that they're doing great, if they're on task, if they need some support. But realize that you don't have to be in charge of grading all of that. If they're learning new spelling words, or they're learning, you know, they're completing the Truman reading list, you don't necessarily have to score those tests. You know, go on to a website where those sites are already created with the quizzes, and let the kids take the quiz and just report their score back. That's not something that you have to stop and take your time for. You might tell them you want to see that score before they opt out, and you need to set a criteria. You have to pass this with an 80% before you've demonstrated mastery and are ready to move on to your next step. Mastery is that point where you're giving them the opportunity to practice, to learn, but you're not expecting perfection. Mastery doesn't mean you've got this 100%, but it means you've got a great handle on your new skill or your new concept, and you're ready to build on it. And then you go in there and with Kahoot or Quizlet, you can create some tests that as the kids get to the next point, the next checkpoint in their progress, you've got the resource. They can go in there, take the quiz, the Kahoot, and it's automatically scored. Again, that frees you up to be conferencing with students. Rubrics are at the end are a great, easy way to create something that they can see well in advance what you're looking for, what you're going to be assessing them on. Content, you're going to think, evaluate what their thought process was as they were going through the steps, what their final product looks like. Is it something they're proud of? What degree of engagement or empowerment was demonstrated throughout class? If there's somebody that truly bought into it, you're going to have kids that not only meet your learning goals, but they're going to have so much deeper knowledge about content, and they're going to be more motivated, and they're going to be happier kids because they've had that opportunity through empowerment and through choice to be a very successful student. So these are some of the sources that I looked at. There's so much out there when you talk about choice. This was the lady that really inspired me to think about choice, and she did a lot with gaming. I've worked with other librarians that did come up with games, the escape rooms, and those types of things are great opportunities for learning in the library. It's something that you can do in a short amount of time. It doesn't drag on from week to week, but allows kids to be successful in problem solving and working together. And collaboration can be a very big part of choice. Another ed webinar that I watched, inspiring student empowerment, moving beyond engagement and refining differentiation. Patty Dupuy was really entertaining, but she had a lot of great points about the importance of working with students, supporting the students, and just transitioning them into this new world of choice learning. Final one that I recommend, helping students build intrinsic motivation by fostering the student's sense of mastery, autonomy, and purpose. That purpose is truly the end goal. They understand why we're learning this from the very beginning, and they've got the buy-in. So all of those are great resources. So again, I hope that's something that you're interested in looking at. Supporting teachers when they come in and they're kind of out of their bags of tricks. This is a great opportunity to collaborate with other teachers in your building and provide opportunities for the kids to come in while they're doing some independent learning, just to provide a safe place in the library, to provide another resource that they can tap into. Great opportunities to collaborate with your other peers. And again, a great opportunity for advocating for your position in the school building and for your library program. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to follow through with you. I think everything's muted right now.
We did actually have a couple of questions that were presented in the chat. Okay. And Jennifer, she and I have messaged privately after she posted hers, but her question was about making sure that a student picks a topic or a path that is appropriate for them, and you completely answered it with your Big Six information. So she has given us permission to move on. I'm just trying to scroll through. I think Stephanie was the next question. Stephanie, do you want to ask your question, or do you want me to go ahead and ask Diana for you? I see Stephanie moving. I'm happy to go ahead. She says, wait 1 second. She wants to ask.
Okay.
It looks like she's getting to a quieter space.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, I can stop. Is this better?
Yeah, I can hear you. I just can't see you now. You're
Okay. So I have a district Chromebook that's awful, that doesn't really support Zoom too well, even though that's what they've chosen for us to use. So if anytime you can't hear me, let me know.
I think it's better when you don't have your video on.
It typically helps.
Yeah, I think it's better without the video.
Yeah,
Go ahead and try
do that now. How's that? Is that better?
That's way better. Yes.
Yeah, our district has this Chromebook. Our Chromebooks don't work well with Zoom, but that's what they have us use. So this is like
right.
So that's what you know why I turned my video off earlier. So here's my question. So this is our district's first year being one-to-one technology. We are, because we're 100% virtual. And we have 30 minutes to get for specials, which one of the classes they push into, which ends up being only 20 to 25 minutes. And I have kids that are just struggling even to get into Zoom. What would that look like? What would be an example of a lesson that I can do with them in 20 or 25 minutes for kids that struggle, that I've never had a technology device of their own?
Diana, did you catch all of that?
So Stephanie, just to clarify, you want to know what it would look like, especially with a very short period of time, how you can demonstrate some opportunities in choice learning with the new one-to-one devices?
And being completely virtual, I think, is the other.
I mean, I want my students really engaged. I like the idea of them taking ownership. It's really hard at this point. So if anybody has these objections.
So what grade level do you have, Stephanie?
I don't think I can hear. What grade?
And it's 20 to 25 minutes. I have them for once a week. So it's probably something that they're going to forget the next week. 3rd through 5th grade.
Got it.
I think a lot of it just depends on what kind of opportunities your peers at this
chat.
Teachers coming in, what kind of opportunities are you given to work with them in that short time? Are you basically book talking with them and doing checkout? Are you still doing library lessons with them? Are you supporting curriculum lessons? Is it a mix of all of the above?
So it says that she's taught them how to email.
Okay.
So it looks like a little maybe ed tech stuff.
Right.
And
so, an opportunity to email, sending you an email, giving them an opportunity to engage with you, or a favorite author, or, giving them options on what they could do with you.
Yeah, I've taught how to email. Euthora.
I think we're having trouble. She's been using the chat a little bit as well, but she's taught them how to use the email, how to use Sora or Overdrive, and had them email her last week. So I think it's sounding like she's doing mini ed tech kind of lessons.
Right.
But
So I guess I'm on the right track. I had them email me last week, so I'm on the right track.
okay.
Yes, absolutely. You know, just, and because in that email, then they have
tell me anything.
Okay.
And that's a great opportunity, because there's a opportunity to collaborate with a student one-on-one, because they had choice on what they wanted to share with you, and then you had the opportunity to respond back to them and you know, offer some encouragement and let them know that they did a great job and that, you know, their email looks awesome, and inspire them to maybe reach out and talk to other people through those email opportunities to go out and talk to authors or other people.
Jackie had a great idea. Jackie, thank you for posting this in the chat, but she said that exploring author websites together for a virtual lesson,
Right.
and then maybe emailing the author to learn more about their writing style. I think that's a great idea, especially with only having a few minutes. I think we're going to go ahead and move to the next question. Lillian was asking how would you choice learning with elementary grades? And she wants to use choice learning in an elementary school.
I think it's pretty much that same thing. You can offer them opportunities like when you're doing lessons on using book parts or whatever kind of lessons that you're doing, just not being set and just doing one method, not just a coloring sheet, or not just maybe them just coming up and telling you about something. You know, there's that kid that wants to be reclusive and just kind of sit back and do their coloring sheet and demonstrate to you, just hold it up to see that they finished it. But others want to have that conversation. And then there's the other shy ones that don't want to turn on their microphones ever because they're real shy still about being a virtual learner.
Other questions? I know, Diana, when I was hearing about your topic, part of my issue in student choice as a secondary librarian right now is we are in a hybrid learning environment. So half of my kids are there half of the week, half of my kids are there the other half, and Wednesday everybody's at home online. 26% of our overall student body chose the completely virtual option. So for us, student choice right now isn't so much, I mean, they see their teachers once a week, so they're not coming to the library. They just can't give up that instruction time. So they're not coming to the library. And we are trying to work out ways of how do we still give student choice, even in selecting a text for personal reading,
Right.
in those strange environments. And we've been trying to increase our ebook, but our ebook with my demographic, they don't have access to internet at home. Traditionally, a lot of my students are having to use district provided Wi-Fi. And so my ebooks, where I can build those and I can pay for them, it's really kind of throwing good money after bad, because they're not using them. But if I don't show that I'm trying to increase that, I'm not providing for student choice. So we're kind of in a different situation where we don't get to interact with our kids like I did when I was in the elementary library.
Right. Well, and I tell you, being a middle school librarian, a couple of things that I did to offer choice to my students, one of them was using those reader award choice books. And, you know, because you can't insist that they read those, but you can certainly book talk them and you can generate the interest. But I created like a template that looked like an iPhone, and we put the covers of the books on stickers. So if they read the book and then they took a little 10-question quiz that I had on the computer, if they got 80% right, then they earned that sticker. And if they read 3 of the books, then they could come into the library and we would give them like a mini candy bar or something. And then if they read, 6 of the books, they earned something. And then at the end, if they read all of the books on the reader award list, then we had a pizza party for the kids that read all of them. And we posted their little iPhone on the wall through the library, so they could very quickly come and see, the stickers that they had earned. So that gave them choice whether they read them or not. But the ones that wanted to, there was some great motivation for them to complete all of the steps.
And I think that's part of the issue we're struggling with is the incentivizing that we used to be able to do. We can't do this year. Like, I can't have them in for the breakfast, and I can't have them coming into the library. My ELA teachers scheduled checkout times in the library, but it was 46 separate checkout slots because you had to schedule 2 20-minute slots for each teacher because they had an A through K and an L through Z. And it was insanity because you also had to clean in between every single group. And so we just don't have those opportunities for that face-to-face incentivizing.
Are you doing book checkout? Are you doing any book checkout?
Oh yeah, we're checking out. It's just whether or not they will come to us. We're also trying to do, my co-librarian and I are volunteering and doing a car line because my completely virtual kids, like, they don't even get to come into the building. Right. And so we're trying to push out information to them about, you still have the choice to read. You still can read for fun, and put a book on hold through our OPAC, and we'll meet you in the car line on Wednesdays. But again,
template, that little iPhone template where they can earn the things. You could do that when they're coming and picking up their free lunch, or they're picking up their books and stuff. You could have that template in there, and they could still send you their scores, or have a way to monitor when they've completed it, and you could still give them that reward. So there's still a way that you could motivate them with those extrinsic rewards, but a lot of it's got to be intrinsic. I've done Genius Hour projects with my middle school students where we were talking about conservation, and they could choose water conservation, air conservation, or whatever. It was in partnership with my science teachers. And through that Genius Hour, they chose their topic, and we used the Big 6 worksheets. So they had to define their task. They had to tell us, where are you going to locate your resources? And then how are you going to collect those resources and take your notes? What kind of note sheet are you going to take or, keep? And then as you synthesize your information and show us your final project, but it was their topic. They got to choose. I had students that videotaped going out to a pond and cleaning out, all the trash and stuff out of a pond. They got to create the video. They presented it back, and they were very excited about the fact that they had helped their community. They had cleaned up a pond, and then other people in their neighborhood kind of saw them picking up trash, and so it kind of snowballed into a much bigger community project. So Genius Hours, where the kids aren't required to meet with you in person, but they still have the opportunity to go out and use that school resource. They've got their computer there. They've got the framework of the Big 6 to work within to complete that, that Genius Hour project. I had a lot of girls do DIY designing their new bedroom, or doing nails and the different designs. I mean, they could really just take off and do whatever they wanted with it. But it was a great choice project, great motivation. They got to explore whatever they were interested in. So it's a little easier with middle school, high school students because there are so many different topics. And just once they realize that you've empowered them to really dig deeply into something they love, if it's manga comics, go for it, just be purposeful in the product that you're creating, be purposeful in the content that you're putting together for your paper,
Yeah, great. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions about student choice? I'm not Seeing some great suggestions in the chat for the things we've already talked about, but I don't see another specific question. If I'm missing it, please pipe in. All right, well, I think we've got it. Diana, thank you so much again for coming and joining us virtually this evening. We appreciate you taking the time, and we'll share out the slide presentation so that people can go back and look at some of those resources. And Dr. Cameron's also put the link there in the side for the Big Six that you referenced. So thank you so much.
Thank
and
you.
With that, Dr. Cameron, anything else that we need to do for SOLIS Conversations?
No, I just want to thank you, Diana. That was wonderful. Lots of ideas.
Good.
Hopefully everyone has some ideas to try. And keep sharing in the chat if you think of anything else.
All right.
I think that's it.
I think that'll conclude our SOLIS Conversations. Dr. Cameron, you want to stop the recording?